every single
Record.
one of you know Lee, but as I was researching him a little last night, I knew all the things he did, but I had never put them all together to realize how busy this guy is all the time. He's been here, can anybody guess how many years? 21 and a half years since 2004. Our director of music ministry, he got his bachelor's and doctoral degrees at Eastman School of Music, his master's at Ithaca. Then he went to teach at Hartwick for a couple years, but he was here that entire time through his master's degree, through teaching at Hartwick. He came back to Rochester regularly to be our director of music ministry. Um, He's been with First Inversion, which he started for guess how many years? 12. Is that right?
Yeah.
He also currently directs choirs at both University of Rochester and Nazareth. He's a singer in a couple of local choirs. So that's kind of what he's doing now. Plus, he also is involved with rock music, which is teaching violin to little kids and doing choirs as well. Um, so he's taught at Hartwick, Geneseo, and Rock Music. And this is just a little bit of other stuff about him. His goal, he said on the U of R website, is to build bridges through music. Oh, he says he cultivates a deep connection with the outdoors through hiking, biking, kayaking, cross-country skiing, and photography. And he also enjoys wheel pottery and knitting and can often be found with his beloved canine companion, Harry. So, Lee, whenever you're ready, you're on.
It's probably just being a little slow. Actually, I don't want, or no, yes, that's right.
And then you gotta share your screen.
Share and I'll use.
Do you have questions that John might be able to help with in terms of technology?
I think, I think we're good.
Your screen is your,
Let's see.
your screen do you want here?
I would like
He's gonna put
this screen.
some hymns and words
There you go.
again up there for us.
There you go. You're on.
All right. Now, if I can get this out of, I'm gonna mute myself. I'm gonna get rid of that. Great. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I'll expand that. So thank you for your patience this morning. I feel like in these high anxiety times, I always think, oh yeah, I can do it. I can do it all. And then realize, oh. So let's take a few breaths together. Dear God, creator of us all, beyond masculine, feminine, straight, gay, beyond neurotypical and neurodivergent, beyond any sort of ableism or racism or sexism or anything else that us silly humans, sometimes silly, can come up with. Hold us today as we explore your realm and be present with us as we talk and share about how we together can be your beloved community and create on earth as it is in heaven, truly for this time. Amen. So I think, is this the second presentation on progressivism? And so I obviously wasn't here last week, but the word progressive, what does it mean to you? What does it mean to you? What do you, what's that? Scares an awful lot of people. Certainly.
Doing those things that tend to go against the grain of the status quo to move things forward in the right direction.
Hmm.
Right, according to you, right?
Mhm.
Except when I'm wrong.
Everybody likes.
There's,
puns,
yeah.
huh?
I think here at the downtown church, it's closely intertwined with justice and with careful use of language. When Lee was saying gay or straight or male or female, um, I think, I believe in a God who continues to reveal God's self as not male, not female. And we did, in our Bible study this week, I was referring to Genesis. The first verse of Genesis refers to the gods. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Susan, to the,
I don't think there is such a word, but boundaryless. When I think of progressive, I think of without boundaries, that we are not in a box, but moving out farther and farther and deeper, and not drawing any lines in the sand, so to speak.
not drawing lines in the sand. That's really beautiful. So we have pro, which is forward, some sort of forward, and aggressive from gradus to step. And so it's walking forward, it's moving, it's not staying in the same place, which is when I think about it in that way, I think, oh, I've really kind of modeled lots of things in my life on that model. And for instance, just a slight diversion, the title First Inversion is the difference between a root position chord, which you can just kind of sit on all day and say, yeah, this is great. We're here. Everything's in its place. We've got a chord that has made up of 2/3. That's kind of how chords work in their most standard way. And we feel like, oh, this is great. We're comfortable. We can stay here. If I take this same chord and put it in first inversion, there's a lightness, an openness, a broadness. My hand is a little more spread than it was here. And even though the notes are the same, they're just in a different order and they're relating to each other differently. And they're balancing on what used to be the second note from the bottom, right? Rather than being sitting on its root, as we call the bottom note in a root position chord. It's kind of balancing on the third there. I'm just going to put this here so I can talk and use both hands for a second. But, and oftentimes will even spread farther to something like that. And that makes it very easy to go to there, and suddenly we've set up this beautiful way of getting from one place to another with these first inversion chords that lead us forward. Oh, all right. Well, I won't do a whole lot more of that anyway, but Uh, yeah. Uh-huh.
I'll take this.
Okay. Cool. And actually, I think I'll just go back here now. I'm done with that a little bit. Um, but the idea of never staying in one place, never doing just one thing, always imagining, dreaming, which does involve some balancing and sometimes teetering. Um, Yet it always leaves, I hope, me as I just apply progressivism to myself in a place that is open to experience the next thing and be open to an ever-changing reality, which is perhaps something that we all look to religion to help us with, right? The fact that we cannot control much in this world, and ways of explaining it and helping ourselves move forward through it is so much why we are here, why many of us are here.
Name just come to you?
What's that?
Did that name just come to you?
Oh, first inversion? No, I spent months thinking about it. I spent months thinking about it. But interesting you should ask, because yes, as much as and many of you are aware, and many of you may not be, but ADHD is something that I work with every day in the way my brain works. And oftentimes one of the traits of that is I can spend a lot of time in my brain, and then the action part is like, oh, do I actually have to do it too? But I've been thinking about it so much. And following through on the action is tricky, because then you have to commit to one when you still want to think of all the ideas. And your mind is still going on all the ideas. So in a way, I was thinking about it for months and months, and then it probably did come to me in a moment. And I was actually thought of this song. At the beginning of Messiah, and it starts out root position. That first inversion chord has just always been a favorite of mine, and the way it just kind of opens up a whole 3-hour work that has been loved or beloved around the world for so long. And perhaps I hadn't even thought of it that way, as really a connection with tradition, right? A connection with the past, a connection with what grounds us while looking forward into something brand new. So I know this time is going to go by very quickly, and so I have three little topics that I'd like for us to examine today. One is hymnody as an element of. This is basically going to be a little tour of how does Lee Wright do his job, or how does Lee Wright think about how music and worship works. And so hymnody, of course, is a very important part, and it's a part that I take very seriously, because it's words that we all sing, and we're not only hearing them, but we embody them with our own being, and when we sing, we are committing to words in a different way than when we just speak them, and certainly a very different way from when we just hear them, right? Singing them is a full body commitment to the words. So the words and the melody, and music has a particular way that really is completely indescribable of illuminating words. And it will illuminate words for everyone a little bit differently. But it's kind of words on steroids in a way, right? Words that it lifts up in a way that you might only remember the words because of that melody that keeps coming back in your head, right? The second area, and we'll be very brief, is how I think about approaching choral literature, and old works and new works, sometimes changing words, things like that. It gets a little tricky sometimes. And then last, and perhaps a part of my ministry that I have certainly spent my time developing here in this place, and one that is really at the forefront of my concept of ministry, of my concept of the power of music in general, and that is the sacred art of improvisation, the sacred art of being completely in the moment, for the moment, by the moment, with the moment, with everyone in the room, doing something that will only happen then, right? And will only happen once. And now, of course, playing music, and this is just a short aside, it's an area that I've been spending a lot of time with recently, the concept of doing what John Williams can do so well. He plays by ear, right? You have the Great American Songbook just in there, and but you don't have, and you probably, I'm sure, John, interrupt me if I'm say something out of place. But I imagine that John doesn't have just one way of playing any one piece. He probably remembers, how he might have played that piece last year or last month or yesterday. But when he sits down to play it, there will probably be little nuances, different things, different riffs that work their way in over time. And so when John plays, let's say, Till There Was You, the you always changes, right? The you never stays the same. And it's that creation in the moment that is so powerful and makes the biggest difference, I think, between what we know of today now as kind of more popular styles and jazz versus quote unquote classical music, which is learned often in conservatories, which are a bit the opposite of the word progressive. Let's conserve, let's preserve thoughts and feelings that someone had and they wrote down on a page, and we work so hard to faithfully recreate something that someone else thought of. And it's beautiful. I love playing works of other people and the works of Bach, all the great masters, as they are called. Ooh, we might think about that language. Is a great thing, but it's only part of the story. And as I think of progressive worship and ways that people can be connected together, I think improvisation in music is such a key area. So a little bit on hymnody. Let's see if there's anything in my notes that I've missed that is something I want to make sure I touch. So really a big word that comes to mind for me for the word progressivism, and the way I think of progressivism, particularly as it relates to worship, is the word inclusion. Because I think as we go along and everyone's mind is broadened every day to build God's beloved community together, the more we learn about each other, the wider we have to draw our circles, right? And it's so easy to be in your circle and be completely comfortable and be completely oblivious to even the passing thought that where your circle is right now might exclude someone, and could even potentially be harmful to someone. And so we always have to be learning about how others see the world and what things are difficult for others, what things are easy, what things challenge, what things cause trauma. And the more we learn, the wider we keep our circle drawing. And I can say that when I came to work here 22 years ago, I was much more of a straight-laced Christian than you might think. Certainly than I am now. I feel like I have and of course, I've gone from being 25 to in my 40s, and everyone's world changes as they go. But I was immediately challenged here to really think about that inclusion piece and realized there were things that I took for granted that were still worth reconsidering. And, I think before I came here, I was used to taking gender out of words for God in general, as kind of a baseline of inclusion in Christianity. But it wasn't until being here and being in worship where for much time you wouldn't hear God referred to as he, and you wouldn't hear some of those just other masculine emphases that are often placed on God. You don't hear them spoken or prayed. And it's almost something that seeped in unknowingly, but I remember going to other churches or going to another church event and realizing, oh my gosh, I forgot how hearing God as he can really almost literally be every other word in so many situations, in so many places. And so it's almost like, you don't realize where your circle where your circle is, how it's broadening, what's being included until you, go someplace else, hear it differently, and think, oh, that actually makes a big difference. And I can't hear it this way now without feeling some friction. So I thought a little bit about what I thought of as some favorite hymns. So I have some pulled up here, but and you can see the first one, but you can't see the others unless you can read the small print at the top. But any ideas on what someone thinks is a favorite hymn in this congregation? And I probably have it pulled up. Anyone have a favorite? Shall We Gather at the River? That is wonderful. It's not one that I actually already pulled up, but I completely agree. And so let me pull it up.
Pat Tweed really would like to, the sound is not coming through.
Okay, what's just my voice?
No, this mic is not picking this up. Do we need to lift this up here?
I'm not going to focus on playing it,
Okay,
so I don't think we should worry.
Remember, it's past.
Right. Yes. I will, if I play again, I'll play loud, and maybe because there's about 15 minutes and
Pat, he was gonna play real loud.
yeah, so let's see. Can I minimize that? Great.
David, would I do a second one?
You need one for.
we're going to talk about words. I'm not going to play anymore. Just because my mind is having trouble right now, to maybe stay a little on track. I don't think I can think about that with all. Just thank you. So it's not really a big part of what we're doing at the moment. So shall we gather at the river? What I would like to do is maybe just go through two or three hymns and notice, what do you notice in terms of something that feels, yes, that's progressive, or oh, that seems less progressive. And I wonder how, oops. And I can read if that, is that text kind of visible to folks in the room? So, shall we gather at the river where bright angel feet have trod, with its crystal tide forever flowing by the throne of God? Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river, gather with the saints of the river that flows by the throne of God. On the margin of the river, washing up its silver spray, we will walk and worship ever all the happy golden day. Ere we reach the shining river, lay we every burden down. Grace our spirits will deliver and provide a robe and crown. Soon we'll reach the shining river, soon our pilgrimage will cease, soon our happy hearts will quiver with the melody of peace. I think it makes perfect sense that this is a popular hymn in this congregation. What are your thoughts? Just what do you notice that you find particularly progressive? And are there any areas that raise questions? Yes, we are talking, this is a we hymn. And some hymns are I hymns, and some hymns are men of God hymns, right? At the kind of farther edge of exclusivity, even though one might say, well, when Men of God was written, that it was intended to include all humankind. Mankind includes all humankind. And even though mankind includes all humankind, then why don't we say humankind? But the we, the pronouns used, so important. Susan.
Part for me that is not progressive is the throne of God.
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time. Well, the God that I experience is not on a throne.
Yep, that is the part that sticks out to me as well. It could be changed, and so interesting. That's such an interesting point and question. And having worshiped in this congregation for a long time, that we often change words. And in fact, we have a paragraph in the back of the bulletin that says, please feel free to change words as you want during this service. And sometimes I think maybe we need to make that, since it's in the back of the bulletin, some people might read it at some point, but I don't know that it's a common communal thought process in our congregation week after week, that we do have that liberty, freedom. But why? So other things that I find just quite inclusive here is that there's a connection with nature. There's a connection with the earth. There's a connection with water. And there are certain Christian I mean, there are so many Christian symbols, water being one, that really bind us together in a way that we all know we need water, you know. And so exactly what you believe about the water of baptism or the living water from the well, the water or wine of communion, what you believe about it is secondary to the fact that we all need it and that we all have a relationship with it, which makes it a very strong, progressive image.
I also think about the community of saints and the matriarchs and patriarchs that have come before us. So the angel feet to me is an important piece in this.
And one lovely thing about this hymn, I mean, this is an old hymn. It's a 19th century hymn, 1864. And so it was written at a time when language could have been much more exclusive than it is here. But there are so many things. It doesn't say matriarchs and patriarchs. It says angel feet, and it says saints. And so that is a real strength of this hymn. And one other area of strength that I will talk about, and this is such a great example. Thank you for choosing it, Nancy. Who doesn't like to sing? Yes, we will gather at the river, the beautiful river, and then repeats, yes, there's such a surge in the music and the way the music and the words hook together in this hymn are a great example of really well-tuned lyrics and music. Because it's going just the way the rhythm changes, and the word yes stands by itself, and yet it's quite a simple tune, but it's very repetitive, and it has that going to happens to be going to the fourth scale degree, which gives us an amen cadence. And so I said I wouldn't play the piano much, but if we're in this key, we go yes, and that takes us. There's such a power in that simple relationship between the fourth scale degree and the first scale degree that's used so simply and elegantly, but completely effectively in this hymn. That works so well. What's another favorite hymn in this congregation? Grania. Precious Lord, yes. I actually thought of it and then didn't pull it up right away, but the nice thing is that I have the entire hymnal as PDFs. Glory to God hymnal, here we are. Oops. Move out of the way. There we go. Oops, that's not the right one. It's this one. Oh. There we are. Particularly appropriate this month. I was actually watching a video about this very hymn 2 days ago. As I'm kind of working on learning about gospel piano. And just so you know, I'm going to step out on a limb today in church. I dropped a choral arrangement that I created a couple days ago, well, really last night. But I've been thinking about it all week. For the choir, and I am going to improvise the accompaniment using some very basic gospel skills I've been learning, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with you today. But this hymn was written by Thomas Dorsey, not to be confused with Tommy Dorsey and his band, the trombone player. But Thomas Dorsey is a black man, and one of the fathers of gospel, considered one of the fathers of gospel, originators of gospel music, early influencers, we might use that word today, of gospel music. And this hymn, as many of you I'm sure know, was a favorite of Martin Luther King Jr. And as his day approaches this month, this is a hymn that is certainly on my mind and heart. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, help me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. Without even having to read into the second verse, this gives us I, but we all sing I together. And I see that as a really important time for us to make sure that we can, that as someone who chooses music for people to sing, I want to feel comfortable enough that that the congregation will be able to sing these words without, hopefully without harm and without feeling like they can't get behind them, right? And which is why it's so great that we have leadership. We have tired, weak, and worn feelings that people can relate to. We have the storm and the light and home, perhaps really a very universal feeling. If home could be a feeling, and even certainly a challenge. The first thing that comes to mind, I'm thinking, ooh, and there are people that don't have a home either, a shelter, but how does God provide a home that's greater than any shelter we might ever inhabit? But that does just make me think, oh, maybe little sticking point. Those are the things that I try to be aware of when I'm looking at these texts and thinking about, what can work. And that takes me back to Shall We Gather for just one moment. The throne of God. Yes, that's there. And it's one line in a hymn that otherwise is very inclusive. And I'm often thinking about balance, proportion, because we don't want to just forget that old language existed or other ways of thinking exist, but we can try to not put anything at the forefront all the time in a way that becomes oppressive or overbearing.
There's a question from Pat Tweet here. Is Lord a word that lends itself more to music making than God? You can draw the word out over multiple notes when singing.
That, and that's very interesting. A really great question, because to be honest, God in some ways can be easier to sing, and can sound better, especially in Rochester, where we're notorious for having R's, and the word Lord is actually one that, when you sing it in choirs, choirs often have to work very hard to have it sound, to get the twang out of the sound of that word. So replacing it with God, just an ah sound, is actually great. The stopped consonant at the beginning, g, changes vocal approach is different than Lord, which can lead to an easier onset if I'm getting very technical about singing. And also thinking about how we put the d at the end of the word. Both Lord and God have d at the end, and that's something that choirs have to work on. But they're both one syllable, which is why you will see that often Lord is replaced with God, and it works quite well. So that's one of those replacements that can work relatively easily. Other replacements sometimes can be more challenging, and just for the sake of time, I'm going to talk about a choral anthem by Edgar Bayton, and I Saw a New Heaven. We sang it at some point this fall. I think we sang it on All Saints this year, and there's a section in it that is, and God himself shall be with them, and he shall be their God. And it's old language. But early on, I came up with, and probably with the help of Pat Youngdahl and maybe others, with a line that sounded appropriately stylistic. And so instead of, and God himself shall be with them, and then God's self shall be with them, and be their God. And that was one, and some people still, when I've worked with singers, they say, why are we changing that? Well, it does take the masculine out of God when you do it that way. And it's still, there are no kind of vocal compromises. The style fits in a way that doesn't stick out. And so those are the types of changes that I try to make regularly, ones that work easily. And then sometimes if changes don't work so easily, or changing, Throne of God, for instance, and Shall We Gather at the River might be one. And that's a borderline, but there are some words that people know so well. And if it's not a huge part of it, and it's not the whole theology of the hymn isn't focused on the rulership of God in that way, other than that line, that's the type of balancing that that I consider as we choose things and choose when to change words. At Christmas time, we sang some selections from Messiah this year, and we left the language as is for the most part, because sometimes making changes in things like that can be more jarring than is maybe necessary. And again, it's looking at the theology of a whole piece and saying, is there an overwhelming sense of a message here that's overtly masculine and or overtly somehow drawing a narrow circle, and oftentimes I look at it and say, while that's not ideal, it's not the message of the piece in a way that I see as potentially dangerous, or as dangerous as some other things where the theology is getting very specific, and maybe too specific for some in this congregation. So I will go to the kind of last part now, and then I will actually leave you. I'm going to leave a little bit early to just say hello to the choir before worship. And if someone wants to come up as I run out, there's a whole bunch of hymns here, and I thought it might be interesting for you to go through one or two together, and you might find something that you might come up with a word change that you want to suggest, and we could hear it in worship sometime soon. As a possible outcome of this final activity. So this brings me to improvisation, and it's something that I wasn't all that comfortable with before coming here, and I had just improvised, sometimes preludes and postludes a little bit at my previous church, which was 12 Corners Presbyterian here in Brighton. And I had kind of built the courage to begin some improvisation. And now, if you come to church regularly, you know that I lean into improvisation quite a bit. And I found relatively early in my time here that I could spend many, many hours working on a work of Bach or presenting a piece of repertoire that I had, spent lots of time learning, and those are always appreciated, and I do love that work. But I found that when improvising, even when I didn't necessarily feel it was great or my very best, I have come to know and trust that when I'm able to connect with the moment in a vulnerable way, that connects with human beings. And you have probably noticed this fall that I've begun to invite the congregation to think about ways of improvising as well in worship, whether it's doing a rhythm that's not going to be dictated, right? But you get to create it, singing along, choose this note or that note. I'm not going to say do this, do that. And that has been very intentional. And it's also leads me perhaps to a really great closing point. And that is part of progressivism is drawing the circle wide, helping everyone to feel comfortable. And music has a great power to be a really warm and snuggly blanket, especially when music that we've known for a long time, music can carry some of our oldest memories, or the longest memories from longest ago. And so that's wonderful. But, I should say, as progressives and humans striving for beloved community, we also need to be challenged. And music does that for us in many ways. Not just being challenged to hear something that we might initially say, oh, I don't really care for that. But what might I learn from it? How might I be with my reaction to it? When words do strike me oddly, or the music itself just doesn't quite feel totally comfortable inside me, that's an opportunity, right? And so I've always said, as in music ministry, if people are complaining to me a little bit about everything, I'm doing my job. Because obviously there's not any one thing for everyone, but as long as people aren't complaining, everyone's not complaining about the same thing, but everyone's complaining a little bit about everything, I can say thank you so very much for that feedback. And there might be some other people in this congregation that disagree, and it's lovely to do things that work for everyone sometime, at some point. That's the idea. But the idea of challenge in music, one thing I've noticed in these participatory services that we do, people are often scared, and I understand that. It can be hard to be vulnerable, especially in public, but it's hard to be vulnerable, period. But that is part of the challenge, that is part of a spiritual challenge that music provides for us, that I hope, I strive to present it enough to know that, and I've seen there was one time this fall where someone wrote on eConnect, maybe that they were kind of it was too hard to do the rhythm they were trying to do at that time, for whatever I might have been asking as far as participation. And I thought to myself, yes, maybe it was a little, maybe this was distracting in this moment, but that's an opportunity. That's an opportunity to go through it, to examine it, to do it again. And perhaps, it's said in the world of jazz or improvisation, period, if you make a mistake, just do it again, right? You make a mistake, do it again. Love it. Love your mistake because the improvisation gives us the opportunity, and it's quite a spiritual opportunity to take something that we might perceive as a mistake in any sort of way and be with it and move through it. And either we do it again and turn it into something new, or we simply keep going and leave it behind. And we don't have the brains, we don't need to worry about whatever that was because we're in the moment, moving forward, progressing. So.
I was very fortunate to be on the selection committee when we had the three final candidates for this position 22 years ago. And I remember that one of the questions that was asked was, are you in favor of inclusive language? And you were.
Mhm.
One of the other candidates was not.
Mm.
Lee did some things. He had three instruments with him, the piano, his voice, and the violin. And he also was asked to play a hymn, and I don't remember the name of it, but we always sang it in September because it had the bubbling.
Earth and All Stars.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. And he actually made the music come alive with that. And then the final thing was he had to direct our choir, and he knew exactly what to do because he knew he had probably read through the music and he knew where the places would be difficult to make it come off because, a music teacher or a music director who doesn't have much time with the group, one rehearsal a week and maybe Sunday morning, you have to know what to do. And he did it very well.
Thank you so much, Carol. So if anyone would like to come up and I'm actually going to choose, there's one here that is definitely a favorite of this congregation, Come and Find the Quiet Center. And another one right next to it, Holy, 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 that I think if you were to spend a few minutes talking about those two while I go down and hear the choir, you might have some interesting conversation. So thank you again for your patience and grace this morning. And it is such an honor to be with you as always. And it's not lost on me that not only have I served this congregation for 21 and a half years, but this congregation has immeasurably enriched my life in the 21 and a half years we've been doing this, and I am so grateful for the opportunity every day. So thank you.
I will bring your computer to you.
Great.
I will safeguard. Thank you so much.
Maybe you could go to the front desk and I'll pick it up after worship.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You can see it?
Yeah. That's good.
Do you want me to read the words? Come and find the quiet center in the crowded life we lead. Find the room for hope to enter. Find the frame where we are freed. Clear the chaos and the clutter. Clear our eyes that we can see all the things that really matter. Be at peace and simply be. Silence is a friend who claims us, cools the heat and slows the pace. God it is who speaks and names us, knows our being, touches base. Making space within our thinking, lifting shades to show the sun. Raising courage when we're shrinking, finding scope for faith begun. In the spirit, let us travel, open to each other's pain. Let our loves and fears unravel. Celebrate the space we gain. There's a place for deepest dreaming. There's a time for heart to care. In the spirit's lively scheming, there is always room to spare. Any comment?
I think of this as Marcia Summers' favorite hymn. Every time I see it, it makes me think of her. And often when I was preaching, I would ask her to be my liturgist. And her request back was, well, could we sing this particular hymn? Because this was her favorite.
Okay. It just strikes me, this is a very contemporary hymn, modern hymn. I think 50, 100 years ago, we wouldn't be thinking about clutter and too many ideas and too much happening and chaos. And this seems to be very much a part of our time.
Looking, 1992.
Yeah. And there's an emphasis also, or hints of meditation and calming. And Lee actually did a little of that right at the start. So I think he's a practitioner of meditation as a way of calming and focusing.
It's just slow and you contemplate the words, I think. It's a simple tune. But I noticed that the other one that he had that's going to be up there is Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty. That's completely the opposite, I think.
Should we go there for a moment?
Yes.
If I can figure this out over here. Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, early in the morning our song shall rise to thee. Holy, 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 merciful and mighty, God in three persons, blessed Trinity. Holy, 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 all the saints adore thee, casting down their golden crowns around the glassy sea. Cherubim and seraphim falling down before thee, who wert and art and evermore shalt be. Holy, 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 through the darkness, though the darkness hide thee, through the eye of sinfulness thy glory may not see. Only thou art holy, there is none beside thee, perfect in power, in love and purity. Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, all thy works shall praise thy name in earth and sky and sea. Holy, 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 merciful and mighty, God in three persons, blessed Trinity.
The date on that. It's an old one. It's a very old one.
It's not listed.
It's very old. Childhood. I think of Holy, Holy, Holy as a hymn of praise and affirmation. And also, Lee would have a better way of describing this, but it's hard for me to separate the words and the music. It's just so all one. And I think there's something about, I mean, I hear an organ or hear a piano or I hear an orchestra or whatever, along with the words. It's so intertwined for me. The other hymn, for me, is more of a quiet invitation, more of an inner, speaks to my inner, an inner place within me.
I have trouble with cherubim and seraphim. This is nothing that I can relate to. This strikes me as centuries old ways of thinking.
Art and the and well, also added to that is the terminology, the thee and thou, and it's very well, yeah, it's old, but it also separates us from God in a different way. No, I have trouble with it.
I think we're going to have to end for today. Would anyone like to say anything about next week? Oh, you've got a.
Yes, but this one is overactive. Next week, we will have with us two people from Third Church, some of whom you may be familiar with, Ralph Carter and no, I haven't, Howe. And they're very interested in having an interactive discussion. We've asked them to kind of review Third Church's progressive growth and the stance. And I think it's kind of vague. And we'll come and explore together and look back at our own history as a way of kind of getting in touch of where we want to go in terms of being a progressive church. And I think it should be a fascinating time.
I think they describe themselves as a progressive church with traditional music. So it might be interesting to see some of those contrasts.
Thank you.